Tonight, I will be taking a walk down memory lane. I will give you guys my bold predictions for the 2025 college football season, plus my early season flag plants. C2C Live is next. We started this show roughly about 4 years ago, or an iteration of the show. It's gone through a few name changes. We've had different hosts coming in and out. Austin, not here. Chris Moxley, across the country, in another country. Who knows? I wanted to take a walk down memory lane of what this show...
Thank me for being here, Matt Bruening. Such a pleasure for you to have me here.
Sure.
Such an honor, Matthew, for you to have me. Thank me for being here. Oh, my goodness, Matthew. It's been too long.
Yes.
Probably not long enough for you, if I had to guess, given the way this show started back in November of 2021. But such a pleasure, Matthew, for you to be having me here. You know, Matthew, I prepared a segment because I like to prepare. I like bits. I like bits.
Yes.
And do you watch the Dan Le Batard show, Matthew? It doesn't matter. Don't answer that question. Matthew, I have prepared our own weekend observations, Matthew. Observations. Here we go. Weekend Observations is brought to you by CampusToCanton.com. Campus to Canton is college fantasy football. Matt?
Yeah.
It's been 51 days since the 2025 NFL Draft, and we haven't talked about the elephant in the room. And by that, I don't mean where I've been the last few months. I mean that Quinn Ewers was taken with the 231st pick in the 2025 NFL Draft.
Yeah, he was. I was only off by 230.
Don't interrupt, Matthew. From the number one quarterback in your rankings to literally the last one taken in the 2025 NFL Draft. Quinn Ewers, more like win fewer, as in you are winning fewer games on the college side of your C2C leagues if you took Quinn Ewers with the 101 in your 2021 NFL or supplemental draft. Quinn Ewers, more like Quinn fewer, as in however many shares of Quinn Ewers you had in C2C leagues, you should have had fewer. Bang! Quinn Ewers reportedly turned down $4 million to enter the transfer portal at the end of the 2024 college football season. 4 million gigabytes just happens to be the size of that audio folder on Matt Bruening's computer containing all the clips of me fading Quinn Ewers over the last 4 years. Bang! 4 years also happens to be the over-under on Kyle McCord's NFL career. Bang! I'm taking the under.
I'll take the over.
Devin Brown was the flip side. Of that. Let's bring the song back. Devin Brown was the other side of that take, but we're not gonna talk about that.
Of course not. Yeah, of course.
Hold on. Let me get the music back. Okay, there we go. I'm taking the under. Matt Bruening, more like Matt's Bruening. Wait a minute. Let me start that on over. Matt Bruening, more like Matt's brooding. Brooding that Quinn Ewers was number one in his rankings, but he was the number 231 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Literally the last one taken. Bang! Bang! Matt Bruening, more like Matt's fuming that his BFFs Kyle McCord and Quinn Ewers are more likely to win MVPs for the UFL's Houston Roughnecks than to start a single game in the NFL.
Still an MVP.
Speaking of Roughnecks, Marcus Harvey. Ooh, this is a rough transition. Marcus Harvey, campus contributor Marcus Harvey. Congratulations, by the way. I haven't been here to say congratulations. Congratulations to Marcus Harvey. Marcus Harvey, who on November 22nd, 2023, said that Jaden Higgins had no Debbie value in response to my tweet that he should be 100% rostered. Jaden Higgins, who was just taken at the top of the second round by the Houston Texans in the 2025 NFL Draft. Bang! Bang! Marcus Harvey, more like Marcus is sorry for ever questioning Sharp Review's takes. Bang! Speaking of takes, the Oakland Raiders select friend of the company, Ashton Genty, with the number 6 overall pick. Don't think that I forgot that other C2C content providers out there were telling you to take Emmanuel Henderson and Raleek Brown in the same class. Bang! Bang! Those guys, they can go to hell. Speaking of hell, Art Briles. And those are your weekend observations.
That was a fun walk down memory lane. Yeah.
Then they would go to commercial break, right?
Yeah, we're not that fancy here. Austin hasn't sprung for the commercials just yet. Maybe one day. We got some things in the works.
One of the biggest differences between the content providers on the NFL side, like the NFL fantasy content providers and the college content fantasy providers, is that the NFL, even like the guys who aren't big, like that second tier level of content provider, their content is so like polished. Their backdrops, their frames for their shows, the graphics that they use, they're so polished on that side. And we just aren't. I mean, you look at us or CFF All Access or what Joe DeSalvo does during the season. We don't have the same polish that some of the other that the NFL guys do. And that's I mean, I think that there's something endearing about that, because the college side is still not big. And so it's like the people who are listening to it, they're real fan. Like I was thinking like Adam and Mike, the what's their show called?
Adam and Mike.
South Harmon.
Oh, yeah.
South Harmon. You look at South Harmon's content and it looks like it's $1 million production, Yeah. And those guys aren't like the biggest guys in the NFL. I mean, they're big, but they're not like Ray or, Matthew Berry or some of the bigger guys out there. And even at that second tier and third tier, those guys' content, it comes off really, really polished. And for college fantasy content, it's just not there yet as far as the polish. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. It's just something I noticed. What are we talking about, Matthew? Aren't you hosting this show?
Yeah. I was just letting you talk about all that other stuff. I mean, we had walk down memory lane. That was all. I mean, I had some things prepared in here, but no reason to get in those. That was a very good jog down memory lane of my misses. I'm trying to think if I had any of the real serious ones besides those two over the 4 years. The biggest one I think that I was going to bring up was how this show really got started. Probably where we started to get our most fans was just the massive arguments we would have between who would get drafted first, Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. There was those were the good old days where you and me would just argue with each other and Austin would just sit there in the top. It was usually, those of you watching on YouTube, it'd be like Felix up in the top corner with Austin, and I would be sitting in the bottom corner, and Austin would just sit there quietly as me and Felix would just argue with each other. But there's some people in the Discord wanting to bring arguments and cursing back. Actually, they don't love that. That doesn't happen anymore.
Well, I believed in legitimate debate, and I knew what buttons of yours I could push. It was so easy.
True. Fair.
And I don't know how you felt all those early days, but I remember after we would get done with those shows, I would lean back in my chair and say, "Oh my goodness, that was good." And it was just you and I legitimately, yelling at each other. And I just knew that there was no place else in like on the podcast front where that was happening.
Yeah.
Now it happens on like First Take and everything like that. By the way, Eric Rydholm, one of my big influences. Eric Rydholm. I think that the early versions of this show, at least what I tried to push, it comes from influences from Eric Rydholm. People who don't know who that is, Eric Rydholm created Around the Horn, the Dan Le Batard show, PTI, like all of those debate style shows. They come from Eric Rydholm. Saturday Night Live, big influence on me, and so to mix those influences and themes to what we did here, we haven't done bits in a long time, but early on, some of the best is we talked about dashes, slashes, and periods separate dates. Like some of the things that I think about the most had nothing to do with football, and they ended up being bits that either really worked or really didn't. Fantasy court. We did.
I was talking to someone about that recently. Actually, I was talking to Scarlett about that. I sent her. I don't know how this came up.
If it's your girlfriend, your significant other. I hate when we don't.
It is my girlfriend.
Things for the audience.
I was talking to her about it. We were having a discussion about something, and so I sent her the Halloween episode, the beginning part of that. I found the video of the opening part. Where obviously for those of you who have not seen it, you need to go. It's a hilarious moment where I was explaining to her the behind the scenes things. Austin and I, when we recorded that episode, did not know up until that night that Felix, when he would do the introductions, would read the introductions, or like he would have kind of like a. Let me
tell the story, okay? Yeah. For Halloween, like 3 years ago, Austin and Matt dressed up like me. It was my picture. It was essentially, if you look at my Twitter handle picture right now, it was essentially the same thing, sunglasses, except I had on a black turtleneck or whatever. Okay.
And a gold chain. Don't forget the gold chain.
And a gold chain. I forget I had a gold chain on. It's funny because I took those pictures because I had just started dating. So I was trying to get a, what do you call it? Hinge profile. So I took all those pictures, professional pictures, and it was one of them that I used as my Twitter picture. Anyway, so it's me, sunglasses on, black turtleneck on, and gold chain. And I got that character from it's from a movie. I'll forget what it was, the movie. Anyway, and so that was my Twitter profile picture. Halloween one year, I'm reading the intro, and while I'm reading the intro, I can't see. Obviously, me and Matt and Austin had talked before the show or whatever. Between the time we start the show and me reading the intro, they had switched wardrobe, did a wardrobe change, and they all changed into that image of me, Austin wearing the black sunglasses, gold chain, turtleneck, and Matthew went as far as getting an actual bald head.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously when I start to look at the camera after I've read the intro, I can't contain myself because it was such a good bit. It was it's funny. My boss now used to watch the show then, and he thought that bit was outstanding. He laughed at that bit. He texted me about that bit, which was great. Yeah,
it was well. And for those of you who don't know, I think back in that day, we also had it was almost a 3-minute long intro video for Debbie Debate. So it wasn't hard for me and Austin to switch. We were worried you were going to see it because for those of you who don't know or don't use StreamYard, you can see the people on the show below the screen. So if he would have at any point in time looked down, he would have seen it. And we were trying to figure out how you were being so professional, because your monologue to start that show was 3 to 5 minutes. So you're just going and going and going. And me and Austin are both sitting there how is he not laughing at this one bit? And then finally, as we finally then realized you dropped the screen and saw us, it was a great moment. It was one of my favorite moments on the show. But
it's on Matthew's Twitter. It's on Matthew.
Yes, it is. I have it on Twitter. Yeah.
But this show was built on the debate between Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. Bustin. I think we can actually call him Bustin now.
He's going to start now for the Jets. I think we got to give him at least one more year.
And Zach Wilson. But when you look back, there are some big time. The problem is that when the NFL draft community finally catches up, the players that we touted who were like the number 1,000th ranked player in the country, their value has already caught up to, you know, whatever, but it hadn't at that point. So looking, not even this year's class, like Ashton Genty is an obvious example. Yeah. But looking forward to next year, Lenore Sellers was what, quarterback 87 or something like that in his class. And we had literal fights where leagues were quit because, like, I mean, it's so obvious. Like, Lenore Sellers is just an obvious miss. But going back further, Jamison Williams was the number, 5 receiver at Ohio State?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
5 receiver at Ohio State. I'm like, this dude is good. He ends up transferring to Alabama. Obviously, I know mine. You know, Zach Davidson, who was a punter for a Division II team. I was like, this dude's going to be good. He ended up not being good, but he was a 4th-round draft pick at tight end out of, I think, Central Missouri. Ramondre Stevenson who was transferring. By the way, Wayman Jordan, if there's going to be a next Ramondre Stevenson, speaking of the same type of trajectory, Ramondre Stevenson transferred from, he went to school in Nevada, went to JUCO in California, I believe, and then transfers to Oklahoma. Wayman Jordan, JUCO to USC. By the way, who's the unifying thread between both of those guys? Lincoln Riley. Yeah. Lincoln Riley. Right. So I've heard you guys talk about Wayman Jordan. I really like Wayman Jordan. I feel like I asked for Wayman Jordan to be added to the player rankings like 6 months ago. And it was like, well, we're not adding. Why are we adding Wayman Jordan? But whatever. That's beside the point. But going back, you know, I'm trying to Austin and Colin were on Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze like a long time. I even made fun of them on this show. Yeah. I still think Jalen McMillan's a good player. I still think that he has a chance to be a starter in that rotation, even though the Buccaneers just drafted a receiver. I'm trying to think of who else. But there are like there's some of these players I forget now because they're just kind of given that they're, you know, that they're good or whatever. But it wasn't that way when we were talking about them or recommending them almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what wide receivers. I mean, you know, one of mine obviously would have been Judkins. He's a guy, you know, everybody talking about now. One of the top running backs was a low-end 3-star. Obviously, you already mentioned Ashton Genty. Devin Neal was another one. I can't remember. Obviously, he didn't go as high as we thought maybe he could have in the draft this year. But I was trying to think of wide receivers. There's not a lot of wide receivers that I can think of that we were like super high on that.
It's been, I mean, the truth of the matter is that the people who've been around here the longest, you know, like Luke Vasco, PJ, like those, like they can probably point it out better than we could because we kind of forget about, because you always have to find the next one. Like, who's the next guy? Jace Florizio at Michigan State. That's one that comes to my head because I really like him. The guy at Georgia State, the G5, Trayshawn. I forgot what his name is. Tayshawn or whatever. Running back, whatever his name. That's a guy that we're high on. Like you're always trying to find the next one. But I think it was funny looking at 2026 NFL draft, the first round projections that like Lance Zierlein and people at The Athletic that they're putting out. And who do you see there? You see Mekhi Lemon and my guy, DeAndre Moore, is at the end of some of those first round projections. I'm like, DeAndre Moore, who he reminds me a little. There are these players, these wide receivers that play like every position in college. Jerion Dickey at Oregon, even though he's not been good, he reminds me. Jerion Dickey played linebacker, defensive end, safety, whatever, and I love those players because that's what Braylon Edwards was. In high school. Now, Braylon Edwards is older than me, but Braylon Edwards, the legendary Michigan receiver, went to the Browns and whatever. That's Braylon Edwards Braylon Edwards could have played defensive end in college. That's why I like guys like Malachi Coleman, who was at Nebraska and now at Minnesota. These guys who legitimately could have been defensive end, a linebacker, or something like that. Jerion Dickey. But who I was talking about, DeAndre Moore, who played, if I remember correctly, was it Moore and Malachi Lemon who played at the same high school? And I think
no, Malachi Lemon played with Malachi Nelson. I believe Nelson, was he with No, I think Moore was with Nelson before he transferred, if I'm remembering correctly, because Moore transferred into. For life of me, cannot remember what the high school was. It's obviously one of the highest ranked high schools every single year in California. They were at Los Alamitos, but he transferred into. They got the blue uniforms, and I can't
blue
for
and
life
red.
of me remember.
But
What it is
but
right now.
Moore,
I'll look it up, but
DeAndre Moore
no,
was
no. Gorman, Bishop Gorman, is that what it is in Nevada? I think that's where he went to, if I'm remembering correctly. Now I'll look it up, but
DeAndre Moore, wide receiver at Texas now, who's going to be the slot wide receiver there. He was one of those guys when, like, this guy could legitimately play cornerback at the NFL level. And I love the fact there are these guys who are just kind of physical. They break tackles. They're thick, like they're thicker style players, so they're difficult to tackle. And now you see DeAndre Moore being projected in the first round by some of these teams, even after being a year 1-0. Now, I think that's a little early, but as far as Texas's wide receiver core goes, I think that it's going to be DeAndre Moore before Ryan Wingo, a.k.a. Ryan Wingo is big Laviska Shenault. Ryan Wingo is a big Laviska Shenault. So it's not going to be Ryan. I don't think it's going to be Ryan Wingo. I think that DeAndre Moore is going to be Arch Manning's best friend in that slot. Get him the ball early. Very much like, oh, by the way, another wide receiver that has been touted by Austin since he was a freshman, Antonio Williams, who is now being projected in the first round as a slot receiver coming out from Clemson. So, all right, Matthew, you got to steer this ship.
And I mean, and Austin was on Antonio Williams while a lot of other people were on Adam Randall over him. And Austin was very much on the Antonio Williams needs to be ahead of Adam Randall train. I know
Adam Randall suffered that ACL early on. We don't know what would have happened if he didn't.
He's been turned into a running back now. I think it's fair to say it wasn't just the ACL. That's and I don't even know if he's going to do that good at running back, but it was St. John Bosco for DeAndre Moore, but he was at Los Alamitos with them before transferring to St. John Bosco. I don't really have anything else on the walk down memory lane unless there's anything specifically. There was, I don't know if you got a chance to watch last week's episode, Luke bringing up the Spanish teacher stuff.
Spanish doctor.
Spanish doctor. Sorry, I always forget about that. That was those were good
times.
Did
you provide the full story?
No, I still don't know what anybody's
I don't like when you guys do this. When you mention things, the audience is questioning, what are they talking about? So you have to talk about it. It was our streak for consecutive days recorded or consecutive weeks recorded. It was threatened to be we were going to lose the streak because it was Christmas time. This is probably 3 years ago.
Was it Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Time. No, it was one of the two. I think it was Christmas though.
Okay.
It was Christmas time, and I was going to record with Matthew, but I had gone back home and got this date with someone a woman who was a doctor who had a doctorate in Spanish, and so that's that's why I almost missed the show. And I think I didn't say anything crass, but there was something that was said about. I think there was something said about in the comments that I responded to, and so we deleted it.
Yeah, it wasn't anything crass. It was more of like, when it's on the line a little bit, maybe tiptoes over. Austin gets a little
very conservative about that.
Austin gets a little antsy about it, so we removed. That's the only thing we have ever deleted when it comes to that stuff. And it was a very interesting episode for those of the people who stuck around in there, because we used to do like an after hour show after pretty much every episode for the most part of recording Devi Debate. Used to be just you, me, and Austin sometimes. We actually did not used to put those on the podcast. We would just stay up and talk for like 2 hours, sometimes 2-3 hours, just talking all kinds of random stuff. And then Chris ended up joining the show as well. And it was a lot of fun. We did some, what was it? Who was there before Mike? Was it Barnabas? Mox was the original reality.
Barnabas would do our stat checking.
Yeah, they would come in. Mox did it first, then Barnabas would do it, and Mike would come in. And Mike went a different way with it. Did like a little game show where he'd come in and ask us questions and everything. But that bit kind of failed pretty quickly because none of us.
Well, because everybody was getting tired, and everybody was like, "I don't have any energy." All right, Matt, we're 24 minutes in. You have to tell people about Home Field Apparel. You got to tell people about Campus Canton. You got the Devi Guide. You got the Freshman Guide. What are you doing? Let's go.
CampusToCanton.com. If you guys want the Devy guide, it is out now. Go and sign up. It is $20 unless you have one of the memberships. Please make sure if you do have a free guide, check your email. You would have gotten an email from either Colin Decker or from the website explaining how to use that code if you'd like to use it for that guide. The CFF guide they are working on right now will be coming out soon, so make sure to look out for that. Pre-orders are not available yet, but maybe I can put the fire to Colin's feet here to possibly get that up, as that is obviously one of the guys that a lot of people look forward to, especially with the fact, C2C players also really use the CFF side of things as well. Home field. I mean, I'm not wearing my home field stuff. For those of you who may not have figured it out now, if you're just commenting and seeing me and Felix not react to them, this was a little bit pre-recorded. I am a big Manchester United fan, so they're playing in the Europa League final today, so I was rocking my Manchester United stuff, but use code C2C at home field. Get yourself some new gear as a new season is about to kick off. And last but not least, it is still named the Prospect Athleticism comparison tool, but we will be changing that. But please go check that out while Austin is still out of town. It is currently free. A massive facelift was done to this thing. It is, in my opinion, one of the best tools in the space that you can find, with all of the information and everything you can find on there. I'm not talking about speed scores.
Is this available? Is the Prospect Athleticism comparison tool, is that available at the $2.99 tier?
It is not, actually. I believe you have to be.
That's a scholarship.
It's a scholarship. Well, I'm most positive it's a scholarship.
I think it's a scholarship, which is what, $4.99?
$4.99 a month. But again, if you want to use it now, see if you like it. It is free, will be free until Austin gets back. He does not know we're doing this. Again, it has a full player profile from speed scores, burst scores, agility scores, star scores, player comparisons. There's a database. You want to go in there and look at who is the fastest player we have ever tracked run. And I'm not talking about just in the past couple of years that we as a company have been around. The guys on the recruiting team have gone back and gotten like what Barry Sanders was running back in this. I've had all those players in there. You can go through that database. We have Team View where you can look at the depth chart in comparisons as that, and you can also do up to 3 player comparisons. So, for instance, one of Felix's hits, we go back to that as the beginning of the show, walking down memory lane, when he told everybody that Anthony Richardson was going to be really good. You can compare him to Lenora Sellers and DJ Lagway and see how those 3 compare in a certain thing. Go ahead. What? What you got to say?
It's not that he was going to be. I mean, yes, I did think he was going to be good, but I was trying to tell you guys that this guy is, we weren't valuing him as a top 10 player on the college side, and he should have been. That's Michael Penix Jr., Anthony Richardson, like these guys who are physical freaks. We should have known that the NFL is going to like these guys, because the NFL has a history, who guys who are physical freaks but don't have a complete profile of playing the game. Jamarcus Russell, go back to Jeff George. There are a number of these guys who are like this, and Anthony Richardson was at the top of that ceiling. Went to obviously the combine in 2024 and ripped it open. There are a lot of guys. By the way, who could be the next Anthony Richardson to go in the top 10? And
who's that?
Just take one guess.
Lenora Sellers?
No, Lenora Sellers is going to have Lenora Sellers is a more complete player. But to me, Avery Johnson, I think that you all are underselling the interest that the NFL is going to have in Avery Johnson, who's going to go to the NFL draft, the NFL combine, and run a 4.32. He's going to improve as a passer. They're going to see, this guy could be, Jaden Daniels, right? Avery Johnson could be, a guy who he's not as polished as Josh Hoover or Rocco Becht, but damn it, if he doesn't have physical tools 2-3 times those guys. So Avery Johnson.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about him recently. I guess it's my biggest concern with him has been the same thing it was with Anthony Richardson, but the NFL showed that they did not care about some of that stuff. So it's definitely a possibility, especially if he goes out there and has another good year. I know you've talked before, toward the end of last season, that you felt like he was improving some as a passer, despite what some of us may have disagreed with you on that. But I do want to get your bold takes. It's been a minute since you've been on the mic here. I want to get your bold takes for the college football season, the 2025 college football season. You want me to give one of mine first? Kick off the segment? I want you to tell me if you think, I don't want to be lukewarm Austin here and give these lukewarm takes or anything. My first one is, by the time the 2025 season ends, Lincoln Riley will be fired from USC.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Not
who
hot
are they
enough
going to
for you?
replace him with, though? Yeah, I've heard the Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat type thing, and people think that what's the physical freaks behind Jaden Mayava? What's his name?
Houston Longstreet.
Houston Longstreet's going to start at the end of the season. I just don't.
Possible.
I don't think so. And by the way, I mean, obviously, I remain very, very high on Jaden Mayava.
Yeah. Well, just remember who started the Lincoln Riley hot seat rumors last year.
You did at Oklahoma. You were talking about
not at Oklahoma. I talked about it at USC. I was like, he's going to have. They're not going to transition to the Big Ten. They are not doing at all what they should have been doing. I also talked about we'll get to the flag plans later. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a problem necessarily with that take, other than the fact that USC believes it is a tier 1 college football program, and who's the tier 1 college football coach that you're going to get to come to USC? I mean, the person that I think of automatically is Kenny Dillingham. Is Kenny Dillingham going to leave Arizona State? Who is the young up and coming coach that Lincoln Riley was that would go to USC and preferably, might have a connection with USC. I don't know. Pete Carroll's not coming back, obviously. I don't think that they would they're not going to get rid of Lincoln Riley to go back to, what was my man's name who went to Georgia Southern or whatever his name is.
I know you're talking about. Yeah. They're not going back to get him. I'm trying to think of. There was a name that was at the top of my head, but now I can't think of who it is that they might go get. There was all the rumors about James Franklin before, but I don't think. I mean, there's a chance James Franklin's fired from Penn State. I don't know that they want to just go pick him up from if he gets fired from Penn State. But could they get Cignetti? If they stick offense, do you think USC could go get Cignetti from Indiana if he does it again?
That's not. I don't think that's the type of Cignetti. Is not the type of coach that I think USC. They're going to get somebody that's under 40 years old, right? Cignetti's an old guy. That's why I said Dillingham. Who's somebody like Dillingham?
Well, yeah, Dillingham.
What about I don't even know that Alex Galesh is like that.
I thought about.
I'm trying to think of an offensive name that's young. How about this? How about if Zach Kitley? If Zach Kitley does what Lane Kiffin did with those Florida schools, and they're scoring 55 points a game, I could see Zach Kitley being the type of coach that USC would hire. All right, you want a bold take? How about is it bold to say Lenora Sellers will win the Heisman Trophy?
I think so. I think because I think in you saying that either South Carolina has to have just like a really good season and just miss out of the playoffs, or they have to make the playoffs.
Yeah. When you look at the SEC, who's the top of the SEC? Texas,
probably Texas and Georgia.
In Georgia? Yeah, I mean, I think Lenora Sellers is what Cam Newton was for Auburn, where this team, they're going to, whatever they are, they're going to be that because of Lenora Sellers. That end of the year, that November where he had, I don't know what his stats were, but he was scoring 40-something points a game on the college side of your leagues. I think that we see that the entire season. And he has a Cam Newton-like season. And Lenora Sellers is your 2025, 2026 Heisman Trophy winner.
I like it. I mean, I could see it. I mean, we obviously have him ranked fairly high. I mean, if he can continue doing what he did toward the back end of last year, I don't think it's a wild thing to state. And I was trying to pull up their schedule. The problem is their schedule it's rough. They do get a lot of the top end SEC schools. They start off real easy. I mean, Virginia Tech, SC State, Vanderbilt. I think Missouri and Kentucky probably take a small step back this year. Well, Kentucky took a step back last year. Anyways, but then they get LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss 4 weeks in a row, no break. Let's see, at LSU and at Ole Miss. So 2 home games squeezed in between 2 away games there. We'll see what happens with Ole Miss. They did lose a lot, obviously, to the draft, but Alabama, I think, still probably going to be really good. Oklahoma, I mean, they're ranked in the top 25 right now. I think they're probably not. Then the big one, I'm actually supposed to be at this game. Texas A&M at College Station on a Saturday night in November, right before Thanksgiving. That could be a really big one before, obviously, they end the season against Clemson. So the Clemson game won't, I think, affect them too much if they're still high in the SEC standings, because obviously that won't be a conference loss if they were to lose to Clemson. I think they could beat them. Did they beat them last year? I can't remember. I think Clemson won. I think Clemson won because they ended up making it into the playoffs. But yeah, it's an interesting take. I know I believe his odds are fairly low as well for winning the Heisman. I believe it's Arch Manning. For the life of me, I can't remember who the other ones are that are up there, but it's not great. I think you've got pretty good odds for him winning the Heisman. Man, I'm trying to think of what another good bold take is going to be. I wasn't sure where I.
Well, I can give you
some of these. Yeah, go ahead.
While you're thinking about it, I think we have 4 like brand new semifinalists, the Final 4 in the college football playoff. We have 4 new ones who've never been there before. Just because I don't know that there is a dominant team in college football, including, Ohio State, with what they do not bring back this year. And I think, obviously, we're a fantasy show, so we're fantasy focused. I don't believe in Julian saying. I don't believe in the freshman there. And I think that, kind of all of these teams, Georgia included, are ripe to be upset. So I think we see 4 new, could Washington with Damon Williams make the playoffs out of the Big Ten? I mean, Illinois. I love what Brett Bielema is doing in Champaign. It's funny because of the teams that made it deep in the play. I think Arizona State is going to be right back there with Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson and Kanye Udo, and I know people like Kyson Brown. I love what Arizona State is doing. They could be there at the end. I think that there are going to be 4 new finalists there when we get to the end.
That's fair. I mean, I would like to see Washington make it. I still think they're probably like a year away, just because Jed Fish did it with Arizona, right? When nobody expected them to do it with Noah Fafita and Tetairoa McMillan. I don't know that, DeMond has that weapon for him right now that really could change things. So
Denzel Boston's been projected to be a day 2. Let's not say that he doesn't have any weapons.
I don't know that Denzel is Ted, but sticking with the playoffs, I think obviously the Big Ten is probably going to get at least 4 schools in. And I think after what we saw from last year, I think Dylan Raiola is going to lead Nebraska to a playoff spot in 2025. I said he was going to do it before he left college football and goes into the NFL. I think he does it this season with Nebraska. It's a very up and down Big Ten year, as you mentioned, obviously with Ohio State turning over so much, Michigan turning over a lot as well. Oregon's probably the one team that's really, Oregon and Penn State have kept a lot of their like high end players. Penn State could be a good team, but I just don't know that I trust James Franklin.
Yeah, Nebraska is an interesting one, again, being fantasy focused. So we like Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
I love Ja'Cory Barney, the wide receiver who reminds me very much of Zay Flowers at Boston College his freshman year. This dude is really good. Ja'Cory Barney reminds me of that. But Matthew, I don't think people realize, didn't Nebraska bring in Jeremiah Hunter? I think Nebraska brought in Jeremiah Hunter from Cal and UCLA.
I remember.
So. I want to confirm this.
I know they lost Coleman, obviously. I'm trying to remember who they brought in, though. I don't remember off the top of my head if it was Jeremiah Hunter.
He's at Washington. I thought Jeremiah was. Dang, Jeremiah Hunter's at Washington now. That's even more reason to lie. I thought he was at Nebraska. I thought who did Nebraska bring in at wide receiver?
I'm looking now because I can't remember.
Well, I still like Dane Key. That's who they brought in.
Dane Key.
Dane Key from Kentucky, who is like a veteran presence, a solid, possession wide receiver to put next to Ja'Cory Barney, who's going to be, used on jet sweeps, used on bubble screens, used on reverses, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And if they can have Carter Nelson, who was the freak of an athlete playing like 8-man football from whatever rural state that he came from, if Carter Nelson can develop and be a tight end or wide receiver, whatever they have him playing at, they have some weapons. So I don't have a problem. Damn it, I thought that Jeremiah Hunter was in Nebraska. I thought Jeremiah Hunter was in Nebraska, but he's at Washington. That's a good receiver core for Washington if they got Jeremiah Hunter and Denzel Boston.
It'll be fun. They got a really good quarterback too. Currently committed, just got his Elite 11 finals invite as well, and Derek Zammit in State College, which I'll be talking about with Austin and Colin on the official here in a little bit. My next one is two quarterbacks we have ranked fairly low in our quarterback rankings. I think will go different ways. Right now in the consensus, we have Notre Dame quarterback CJ Carr, who I think will shoot up and end up being in the top 20. I really believe that he's going to have a very good year with Mike Denbrock there at the offensive coordinator position, just a much better passer than Riley Leonard was overall. I also have a flag plant with Notre Dame that I'll talk about later. And Ty Simpson at Alabama, I'm sticking to my guns on this one. He's 59 in the consensus rankings. I think he deserves to be even lower. He's always been ranked low for me. Sounds like he's going to be the starting quarterback from Alabama. I mean, I get in a way believing in Kalen DeBoer, but I don't know. The fact that it's taken him this long to even get on the field, Jalen Milroe was what Jalen Milroe was. They still tried to try Ty Simpson out there. He still couldn't beat out Jalen Milroe. I just don't know that Ty Simpson's it. I don't know that's Keelan Russell that ends up replacing him. Maybe it's Austin Mack, but I don't think Ty Simpson starts the entire year for Alabama.
There we go. I mean, I said that we get 4 new semifinalists. So if Alabama's not good, they're ripe to be upset too.
Well, speaking of players getting benched before we jump to our flag plants, I think Julian Sayin is one of them as well, to be honest with you. But I
don't think they have an option though. I don't think unless you're talking about Lincoln Kindholtz, they're not going to the freshman.
Yeah, they're not going to Tavian St. Clair, but all the reports throughout all camp was like those two were tied in everything they were doing. And I just
insane.
Yeah. And
I think saying throw the ball into the dirt on hitch routes so many times. He just has no arm strength.
Yeah.
Just none.
I mean, the thing is with Kindholtz is he's still got it goes back to the literal beginnings of our shows and talking about Ryan Day and what he does and doesn't like from quarterbacks. Is Kindholtz is a little bit of that gunslinger who's going to run around and everything, and Day just doesn't like it. So I'll be very curious to see, because Julian Sayin ain't running anywhere. Julian Sayin is very, very low in our athleticism ratings and everything. Is just not Ohio State beat reporters are trying to tell you that he's a better athlete than we give him credit for. I completely disagree with that. Felix, I wanted to pull this up actually, because you and me discussed this toward the end of last season. We did pretty good on our flag plants last year. I don't remember
2024 season.
Yeah, I don't remember if you remember who you had. I know who my quarterback, running back, and wide receiver were. I don't remember who my tight end was. He was fine. He wasn't anything super special. But my quarterback was Sam Levitt. My wide receiver, which I said on the show, after other people not named Felix Sharp. Ooh, I found it. Constantly said one wide receiver, Jacoby Lane, was easily going to lead USC in receiving. And I was like, Mekhi Lemon's that guy. He's going to bounce back. He's going to be the one. And then I don't know if you can call this one. I feel like you can, because he was good for you in fantasy. I don't even think he got drafted, but it was Quali Conley from Arizona. I said he was going to lead the room in carries over Jacoby Krosky Merritt and end up having a good season. Now, some of that worked out in my favor. I believe Merritt ended up having eligibility issues or something like that and ended up not being able to play the rest of the season. But Quali Conley was still good.
Undrafted free agent, UDFA, and I don't think Connolly was.
He probably wasn't. I don't remember seeing anything on him, but
Connolly, I mean, he in underdog best ball, he was doing really well for me.
Oh, that is funny that you mentioned the underdog best ball, because that's who my tight end was. The guy that I took in all my best ball drafts because of Chris Moxley was Jack Velling, and he was not good. So I missed on my tight end. That was, probably a product of Aiden Childs as well, and him kind of growing into that role. But would you like to know what yours were? Because I found that
plants.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Your flag plant quarterback was USC's Jaden Maiava. So I think we can call that a win. That was well before everybody was telling Miller Moss. Remember, Miller Moss was the next coming of Caleb Williams because of his 5 touchdowns in the Holiday Bowl or whatever it was. Your running back was Illinois running back Caden Fegan, who I believe got hurt. So I don't know
work
that.
out well. But I'm interested to see how Caden Fegan turns out this year, because people Brett Bielema always has these big running backs, going to, I think, Monte Ball, Melvin Gordon. I'm sure that there are ones that I'm not consider. Oh, Chase Brown, obviously. Chase Brown. Yeah. Now Caden Fegan fits that mold, but Caden Fegan was a quarterback in high school, and even though he's 240, 250 pounds, he was not a physical player. He had to grow into that position in the physicality required for that position. Now, we've seen it in flashes, but you don't have Josh McCray there anymore. They do have the white guy. I forgot what his name, the running back there. But I would love to see Caden Fegan, because I have Caden Fegan in a lot of spots. I thought that he was, a guy who could run for 1,300 yards, because that's how. But shout out to Luke Altmaier and Pat Bryant.
Yeah.
Luke Altmaier, a guy. I think Luke Altmaier is a really underrated guy, partially because he plays in what people see as a Brett Bielema system, and they don't. But Luke Altmaier can spin it.
Yeah, he had a very good season last year. Your wide receiver was Kansas State's Jace Brown. I don't remember. I think he was fine last year. He had a good year. It wasn't anything bad. I mean, again, Avery Johnson kind of growing into that role as a passer, we knew was a little bit rough there when it came to passing the ball. And then your tight end was NC State's Justin Jolie. Who
probably was, I mean, he had to be top 5 amongst tight ends in receiving last year, like after Harold Fannin Jr. Justin Jolie, who I think is going to be like a day 2 NFL draft pick. I think he's so dynamic as that, that move H-back tight end, and he presents a real mismatch. And he's great after the catch. Yeah. Great after the catch, Justin Jolie there at NC State. But I hate the fact that Robert Anae isn't there. Which one of the reasons why I like Justin Jolie at NC State is because Robert Anae, who had Aronde Gadsden Jr. catching on, and then Jelani Woods at Virginia, who had a great season before being drafted by the Colts. Robert Anae isn't there anymore. So can Justin Jolie be great without that offensive coordinator who targets that position? Well, we'll see.
Would you like to hear who Austin and Chris had? They had some interesting choices real quick.
Yeah.
So at quarterback, Austin had Ashton Daniels. I'm not even sure. I don't remember what happened to him. He was very up and down.
I don't know where Ashton Daniels is right now.
He is currently at Auburn battling with.
He'll never play football. He's done. Yeah, they got Jackson Arnold there. Ashton Daniels is going to get his degree. That's what he's going to
do. Chris though hit on his quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. So that was a good hit for him. Running backs. Here's the funny thing. Austin did make this pick before the injury happened. The injury happened like 2 days after this thing, and then he still did not even have a good year. He took Texas's running back Jadon Blue, who then I believe got picked in like the 4th round. Mox took James Peoples from Ohio
That's
State.
One of those. You know who Jadon Blue reminds me of? Joe McKnight. I don't know if people are old enough to remember Joe McKnight, who was a much ballyhooed recruit for USC and then just didn't really pan out, but he was still drafted on his recruiting pedigree to the Jets, I believe. That's what Jadon Blue reminds me of. So when I saw him get drafted by the Cowboys, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, all right. This dude who skipped his senior season and then was in the doghouse, and then remember when he alligator armed that pass his freshman season in the spring game? Yeah. I almost called him Joe McKnight. Jadon Blue, his freshman year at Texas, watching the spring game. By the way, I could have included that in weekend observations. These coaches bitching out and not wanting to have spring games for whatever. You guys aren't thinking like that. I love Fran Brown and Coach Prime because they're actually thinking about what's best for the game. Put your damn spring game on television. It should be bigger, not smaller, not take it away. College football dominate April over, the USFL or Arena League, whatever it is. It could if they chose to. They just don't want to. Don't let me be the AD of a program because your spring game will be on television It will be on television. As a matter of fact, we're probably going to play somebody. What was I talking about?
We were talking about spring games. Well, we were talking about their flag plans. Austin's wide receiver was Micah Hudson, who's in the portal, out of the portal, in the portal again.
About something. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, you were talking about spring games and being the AD. And
no, I was talking about something before that. I said, by the way, spring games. Oh, Jadon Blue. That's the story I was going to tell. Jadon Blue. So his freshman season, like Texas ran this wheel route or something like that. Jadon Blue is like on the side. And the ball is right there, but there's like a safety in his face. And Jadon Blue was making business decisions just like he did in high school as a senior. Yeah. And I feel like Jadon Blue, he was in the doghouse for what, 2.5 years?
Yeah,
Texas,
pretty much.
Before injury made them actually play him.
Yeah.
So
Chris's wide receiver was Isaiah Bond. I mean, not great on the field or off the field with everything that happened with him. And then the tight ends were Bryson Nesbitt and Kyle Morlock. So mine, I'll give you my flag plants really quick. At quarterback, I'm going with East Carolina's Canton. He was a guy that I was a big fan of coming out of high school. They did switch head coaches, but they ended up keeping offensive coordinator John David Baker, who obviously led him to multiple big games at the end of last year, 39 points, 40, 58, 48, 44, like incredible fantasy points for Hauser toward the end of last season. They only did pass the ball down 45% neutral situations and only had a 43% success rate, but I think that changes with the loss of the running back again. Overall, though, averaged 25 fantasy points a game. My running back is a little bit out there, I think, on this one because of how good Mark Fletcher's looked at times, but I'm going to go with Miami's Jordan Lyle. In 5 of the last 7 years, Mario Cristobal has run the ball over 55% of the time in neutral game script situations. I've said before, I'm really kind of worried that Carson Beck's arm is toast at this point, and if that is the case, they're possibly going to run the ball even more. Throughout Mario Cristobal's career at Miami and Oregon, his running back ones have averaged 13 to 20 fantasy points per game. While I do think Fletcher is a fine back, Lyle brings more explosiveness and I think brings everything to that Miami rushing game. So he's my running back. I'm going to be honest, I didn't pick a tight end. I'm going to leave that to Moxley when he gets back. But my wide receiver, I'm really going out there with this one, but I talked about CJ Carr and how I think he's going to have a really good year. I'm going to go with third-year wide receiver Jaden Greathouse. If you go back and look at what the wide receivers have done in the Mike Denbrock offenses, has typically been a slot wide receiver outside of 2 years. Malik Neighbors' first good year where he went over 1,000 yards, where he did play predominantly outside, and Alec Pierce. But in Malik Neighbors' best year, he technically played 51% of the time in the slot and got a ton of production out of there. Last year, Jaden Greathouse, 90% of his snaps came in the slot, and he actually finished second in receptions by just one behind Bo Collins. I really think that Jaden Greathouse has a chance to be really good, especially in the fact that Notre Dame just hasn't been able to produce that like high-end tight end that they've become known for a long time. And I think Jaden Greathouse really will help out CJ Carr. So he is my early season wide receiver flag plant. Who are yours, Felix?
Flag plants, man. This is like we need an hour alone on this because there are players that I just want to talk about as we kind of sort this down. As far as flag plants go, Carson Beck has been one in the past, and I think that actually worked the year that I actually said that. I know that I want to. All right, hold on. Let me look at my notes. Oh shoot, I just X'd out of my notes here, Matthew. Give me a second. Well, I mean, there are lots of guys that I want to pick. Like I still believe in Kyron Drones at Virginia Tech. I still believe in Brendan Sorsby at Cincinnati. He was a guy I was very high on last season. But I've called this player G5 Zach Wilson, but he might actually be G5 John Mateer. And that's Reese Poffenbarger at North Texas. I've not ever watched Reese Poffenbarger play and like when that dude can't play. I really love Reese Poffenbarger. So if there's a flag, that's not the type of flag plant that I usually make, but I think that Reese Poffenbarger not only is a candidate to be QB1 in college fantasy, I think that he's an NFL player, and those are the type of guys that you look up and say, "Oh, this guy was drafted before Drew Aller," like Fernando Mendoza was over Quinn Ewers, right? Like you end up looking up and that ends up happening. Like I wouldn't be surprised about that. So I really like Reese Poffenbarger. I think he's going to take it from Drew Mestemaker there. Jake Retzlaff. By the way, we got some breaking news on Jake Retzlaff. You should look that up. It's not great news. He's facing some legal trouble that broke today. But I really like Jake Retzlaff as the player that I talked about. Speaking of guys who have elite physical tools but haven't put it all together, that's Jake Retzlaff. So I don't see him mentioned when they talk about first-round quarterbacks. Please don't mistake. He has a first-round physical skill set, but he has seventh-round consistency. If he can find a way to be consistent, he just is going to be a first-round draft pick. I wanted to be Kevin Jennings at SMU, but as good as Kevin Jennings I think is, he has a pop gun arm. He has a pop gun arm. So I don't think it's going to be Kevin Jennings, who killed my adopted team, my Louisville Cardinals, here at L&N Stadium last season. And shout out to the guy who almost got in a fight with at that game. All right. So that's, I think, so Reese Poffenbarger at North Texas is my flag plant at quarterback. I want to jump here to tight end / wide receiver. Last season, my flag plant was Justin Jolie.
Yeah.
There's a player who's like the same type of hybrid player, but is probably more wide receiver than tight end. And that's Boston College's Reed Harris.
Okay.
Reed Harris is a freak of an athlete. And the NFL, he's probably 6'4", 215, 210, somewhere around there, is great with the back shoulder body catch, catch radius type catches. The NFL wants those types of players, and they just don't come along. Oh, by the way, Marcus, shout out to you, Marcus, but he was like, oh, the NFL is not going to like Jaden Higgins. No, these guys don't come around, so they get pushed up just like how bad quarterbacks sometimes get pushed up the draft board. These big physical freaks who aren't everything, Keon Coleman, they get pushed up the draft board because you don't find those body types everywhere. You can get the 5'10", 5'11" guy all the time, but you just don't find the 6'4" guy. So Reed Harris at Boston College, I really like him, especially now that, Bill O'Brien, he kicked out Thomas Castellanos. Who could have seen that coming? Literally everybody. Literally anybody who pays attention to college football. But he's got his quarterback in there now. I forgot what his name. But I think that Reed Harris is going to be the focal point of that passing game. So I like him as a flag plant. And I know we're doing this kind of fast because I got to go. Braylon Russell, boy, oh boy, do I love the big running backs.
Yeah.
Anybody who's 230 plus pounds who can actually move, whether it be Caden Fegan, Ramondre Stevenson, Mayan Williams, there have been others throughout the years. But Braylon Russell at Arkansas is the next one. And they don't have Rashad DeBinion. They don't have Jaquindon Jackson. Who was the other? There was another running back who's like that backfield.
AJ Green.
AJ Green. He left a year. Was it AJ Green? AJ Green hasn't been there in a while, I don't think. Anyway, but Braylon Russell went to the transfer portal and they brought him back. I think that's because he's going to be the focal point of that passing game. By the way, what helps a running back have success? How about a quarterback that linebackers have to pay attention to? There are very few quarterbacks in college football that you have to pay attention to in the running game, more than Taylon Green.
Yeah.
More than Taylon Green. So I really like Braylon Russell as my flag plant at running back. Ja'Cory Barney, I talked about him at Nebraska. I think Ja'Cory Barney is in my top 15 at wide receiver, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he's at like 11 or 12. I have it. I need to move my Ryan Wingo down and move Mekhi Lemon up. But I have Ja'Cory Barney in my top 15.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be my flag plant at wide receiver. All right, wide receiver. Do I need a tight end?
No, you just talked about him.
I talked about Reed Harris, but he's technically a wide receiver.
Oh, okay,
he's technically a wide receiver. I love Eli Stowers at Vanderbilt. I love Eli Storer is a former quarterback. There's
Yeah.
some player who took his spot. I can't remember who it is. There's somebody that I wrote, whatever high school he came from. I wrote something on the guy who replaced him at his high school, because he went to high school in like Dallas or something like that, one of those Texas schools. Was a quarterback there. So I like Eli Stowers. I still like Justin Jolie. Listen, Carter Nelson was a freak of an athlete.
Yeah.
Coming out of high school, he is listed on Nebraska. I guess we're getting the Cornhuskers getting some love here. He is listed as a tight end now on Nebraska's website. Last year he was listed as a wide receiver, but he's up to 230. Carter Nelson is a very easy one to point. This is why we need spring games, because I need to see.
Yeah.
I would like to see is Carter Nelson playing wide receiver or tight end? Okay, and is he playing with the ones or the twos? Where is he playing? Is he on the field with the starters? Carter Nelson is one. Do I have any others? No, I think that's probably. I mean, obviously Keon Sadiq. Keon Sadiq is, another one of these short, freakish athletes at the tight end position. But I think that the C2C community and the college fantasy community is already familiar with Keon Sadiq there at Oregon. But those are my guys.
All right. Well, Felix, thanks for just surprising me here and jumping on today.
Thank me for being here. Such a pleasure, Matthew, for you to have me.
It has been. It was a great episode. It was great to have you back here with me, and we will, I'm sure, do it again soon. For Felix Sharp, I am Matt Bruening. Apologies to Kirk. I was not expecting this was finally going to be the show where it was just going to be me and Kirk. We were going to talk Ohio State the whole episode, and then Felix jumped in and kicked Kirk out. So apologies to Kirk. I promise we'll get you back here next time. Talk to you guys again soon.